Tonight on the Worldview Report, President Trump doubles down on his campaign promise to rid the country of illegal aliens, especially those with sketchy backgrounds. We will reveal the next steps that he's taking in this process. A Democrat-aligned federal judge has blocked a Texas law that would have required the Ten Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom. Illinois declares war on children's minds. And Alex Newman explains how Illinois could be just the first of many states to take this unprecedented step in the public school system. Egypt is quietly massing forces along its border with Gaza, determined to keep Palestinian refugees out as Israel, of course, prepares for a final invasion. And President Trump has vowed to take harsh measures in Colorado if the state government does not release Tina Peters, a former county clerk who was sentenced to 9 years in jail on trumped-up charges related to a bogus election tampering charge. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. I'm Brandon House. Leading off tonight, FBI agents earlier Friday raided the home of former National Security Advisor John Bolton, all as part of an investigation into a national security matter. That's what U.S. officials told Just the News. FBI Director Kash Patel hinted at the action in a cryptic post on his X social media account. Quote, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on mission," end quote. That's what he wrote. Officials, they said the search of Bolton's home, it involved a national security case that began under the Biden administration, but was not aggressively pursued until Patel took over earlier this year. They declined to be more specific. Bolton, he was one of several national security advisors for President Trump. He served in Trump's first term before being eventually fired. He became a critic of the current president and of Kash Patel's nomination of being FBI director. Earlier this year, President Trump pulled Bolton's security clearance and Secret Service protection, drawing objections from, some GOP senators like Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Some reports suggested that Bolton could face up to 20 years in prison for mishandling national defense information. We'll see where that goes. The Trump administration's concerted mass deportation efforts, they appear ready to kick in to another gear. As the Associated Press reported, the State Department revealed that they were putting all 55 million foreigners with visas on notice that they could be deported for violations of immigration rules. The AP writes, quote, "In a written answer to a question posed by the Associated Press, the department said that all U.S. visa holders are subject to continuous vetting with an eye toward any indication that they could be ineligible for the document. Should such information be found, the visa will be revoked, and if the visa holder is in the United States, he or she would be subject to deportation," end quote. The department told the AP that it was looking for indicators of ineligibility, including visa overstays, criminal activity, threats to public safety, engaging in any form of terrorist activity, or providing support to a terrorist organization. And then they added, quote, "We review all available information as part of our vetting, including law enforcement or immigration records, or any other information that comes to light after visa issuance, indicating a potential ineligibility," end quote. The AP further notes that all the foreign visa holders, their social media accounts, will be examined, along with law enforcement and immigration records in their native countries, and any actionable violations of American law committed while they were in the country will also be examined. The department, they explained, quote, as part of the Trump administration's commitment to protect U.S. national security and public safety, since Inauguration Day, the State Department has revoked more than twice as many visas, including nearly 4 times as many student visas as during the same time period last year, end quote. LifeSite News reported a bombshell story this week that you will not hear a peep about in the mainstream corporate media. According to the Institute, estimates for the number of abortions performed each year in the U.S. are from 1997 to 2011. That's the birth years of what makes up Generation Z. About 19.5 million conceived human beings of that generation have been killed through abortion. There are currently an estimated 69.3 million Gen Z members in the U.S. The most recent World Health Organization data indicates that the rate of abortion of Gen Z babies in the U.S. nearly matches the estimated percentage of preborn babies killed worldwide by abortion. 29% are 3 out of every 10 pregnancies. Data from England and Wales, well, it shows very similar abortion rates. An Office of National Statistics, or ONS, they reported from 2022 data and found that, quote, the percentage of conceptions leading to abortion was 29.7%. This is a rise from 26.5% in 2021 and the highest proportion on record, end quote. In other news, a Democrat-aligned federal judge has blocked a Texas law that would have required the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom. The move marks the latest setback for red states attempting to restore religious tradition in schools. On Wednesday, Judge Fred Byrie, who is a Bill Clinton appointee, he issued a preliminary injunction against SB 10. The judge ruled that Texas lawmakers failed to demonstrate that public schools have a historic tradition of posting the 10 Commandments. Quote, this court finds there is insufficient evidence of a broad tradition in place at the time of the founding and within the history of public education to justify SB 10, end quote. That's what the judge wrote. The judge also claimed that the measure, quote, impermissibly takes sides on theological questions and officially favors Christian denominations over others, end quote. He said, therefore, it was unconstitutional. Of course, this is all in his warped interpretation of the First Amendment. The lawsuit was brought by families of different religious backgrounds and non-religious plaintiffs. The plaintiffs, they argued that the law would impose a religious preference on their children. The judge, he leaned heavily on precedent, citing a June ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit that struck down a similar Louisiana law. Earlier this month, a judge in Arkansas blocked another 10 Commandments bill, making Texas the third state in recent months to see its legislation stopped in court. The Supreme Court first struck down classroom postings of the 10 Commandments in the case Stone versus Graham. That was back in 1980. Alex Newman at the Liberty Sentinel reports that children's minds are now officially in the crosshairs of one of the most out-of-control state governments in America. Under a controversial new measure that was just signed into law by far-left Governor J.B. Pritzker, that's the governor of Illinois, schools in Illinois will be mandated to give mental health testing to all students each year, starting in 3rd grade. Critics are sounding the alarm, warning that Big Brother cannot be trusted to pry into the minds of the children. From education leaders and privacy advocates to, well, psychiatrists and medical professionals, opponents of the plan say it will intrude into the most sensitive areas of a child's life. Well, let's remember, the governor of Illinois is a proponent also of early childhood transgenderism. So, here's what the governor said when signing into law this new bill on screenings. Quote, screenings provide early identification and intervention so that those who are struggling get the help that they need as soon as possible. They improve academic and social outcomes. They help us break down the stigma that too often is a barrier to seeking help, end quote. One major goal of this bill is to normalize so-called mental health care for children and adolescents. That was explained by State Democrat Laura Fine, who is the chief sponsor of the bill. Alex Newman warns that while Illinois is the first state to do this with this bill, SB 1560, it is likely not going to be the last. He wrote, quote, "Big pharma lobbyists hoping to profit from drugging children are working overtime to get similar schemes passed in other jurisdictions. Even some Republican-run state governments are moving in that direction. And with pharmaceutical interest pouring money into political campaigns, the clock is ticking," end quote. Well, am I shocked by this legislation? No, not at all. I warned about it in my second book in 1993, and then again in my fourth book in 1995. It's called Parents as Teachers. It actually came out of Missouri under Governor Republican John Ashcroft. Remember that name? Yeah. So this is not something I'm surprised at all about. In my books in the early 90s, I warned that this Parents as Teachers program, that should really be called Teachers as Parents, sought to classify whether children were at risk. And here's the kicker. Everyone was at risk under the criteria. Too many toys, too few toys, lack of stimulation, overstimulation, death in the family, a parent who travels frequently, a loss of a job, go on and on, the birth of a new child, a new sibling, everybody would be at risk. And that's the goal. The more at-risk kids in a district, the more state money they get. The more at-risk kids in a state, maybe the more federal money they get. But you can guarantee that now we can add the big pharma agenda, I think, as pointed out by Alex Newman. So nothing is new here. It's just simply the agenda of the, rhinos, Republicans and Democrats working together to push the same agenda that they've wanted for decades. They're now just finally getting into high gear on it. We'll be right back after this short break. You've seen some of them on Fox News, and now some of them are coming to the Worldview Weekend in Collierville, Tennessee, Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, like Gordon Chang, an expert on China, as China is buying up a lot of our farmland and more. Then we're going to have the lead pollster of Rasmussen Polling, Mark Mitchell. Where are we headed with the midterms? What's the worldview of the average American? What values do they really believe in? And then Chris Martenson, he's an expert on the Great Reset as we head toward digital currency and social credit scores. Sidney Powell, a lot of you know who that is. Alex Newman, Dr. Andy Woods on Israel and the Middle East. And Adia Miramonde, she was inside the government and even met with people like Gaddafi. She's going to talk about the Middle East. All the details are available, and to get your tickets at worldviewstore.com. That's worldviewstore.com. Again, tell your family and friends, worldviewstore.com. Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Hey, don't forget about our national conference coming up Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Alex Newman, who I just talked about in that last story, will be one of the keynote speakers live and in the building, along with Gordon Chang, Dr. Lana, Sidney Powell. We're also going to have Dr. Andy Woods, Chris Martenson, Mark Mitchell, the lead pollster at Rasmussen. It's going to be a great event. Hadia Miramonde will be with us as well, October 3rd and 4th. That's a Friday night and Saturday here in beautiful Collierville, Tennessee. All the details are on the website, including what hotels to stay in. Use those hotel links if you're interested. You'll save some money. We negotiated some group rates for you. The restaurants to eat at, we're making it as easy for you as possible. Centrally located in the United States is Collierville, Tennessee. Come on down or come on over or come on up. And they're coming from all over the country. Looking forward to having you with us. Now, if you cannot make it in person, well, you won't get 100% of what we have to offer, but you can pick up 50% because a big part of what's to be offered is the fellowship with the attendees and going up and speaking to the speakers. But you can still stream it if you want to live for people who have a 1-year membership to the Vault. And you can get a 1-year membership by going to worldviewtube.com/vault. worldviewtube.com/vault. If you have a 1-year membership, you'll be able to stream the conference. But not only do you get a membership to stream, you get access to all of our 35 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, and so much more, including some more premium member content coming very soon. So you are going to be happy you joined for a lot of reasons. worldviewtube.com/vault. Don't forget, we're brought to you each and every day here with all the free programming we're pushing out by you. And one way you can support us is through our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Thank you for that. Egypt has deployed additional forces along the border with Gaza amid rising fears that Israel's planned occupation of the Strip could push Palestinians into northern Egypt. That's what a senior military source told Middle East Eye. He said that about 40,000 soldiers are now deployed in North Sinai, almost double the number allowed under the 1979 Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty. That's, again, what the source told the Middle East Eye. Quote, Egypt's army is on the highest state of alert we've seen in years, end quote. And then he added that this followed, quote, direct orders from the president in his capacity as commander-in-chief, following a meeting with the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces and the National Security Council, end quote. He said that Israel wants to dismantle Hamas in the Gaza and force large numbers of Palestinians out. It's a position Egypt rejects. According to a report by Geopolitics Watch, a few weeks ago, the IDF held exercises on the Jordanian-Israel southern border, and they were simulating a sudden large-scale multi-front invasion into Israel. The IDF chief of staff ordered a surprise inspection of the military's top headquarters to test their readiness. Several Egyptian publications, they raised concerns about the drills, suggesting that they might have been conducted with Egypt in mind, given the similar terrain and border length. President Trump has vowed to take harsh measures in Colorado if the state government does not release Tina Peters, a former state county clerk who was sentenced to 9 years in jail on counts related to, suspected breach of her county's voting system. President Trump posted to Truth Social on Thursday, quote, free Tina Peters, a brave and innocent patriot who has been tortured by crooked Colorado politicians, including the big mail-in ballot supporting the governor of the state. Let Tina Peters out of jail right now, end quote. And then, quote, she did nothing wrong except catching the Democrats cheat in the election. She is an old woman and very sick. If she is not released, I'm going to take harsh measures, end quote. Peters was charged after the 2020 election for providing someone with a security pass to access the county's election system. It was after she had suspicions about the veracity of Dominion voting systems. Peters was ruled guilty on 3 counts of attempting to influence a public servant, first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, as well as others. Colorado Judge Matthew Barrett, he was asked to give Peters probation, while prosecutors, they asked for her to serve 20 years in prison. Peters said at the time, quote, it's with a heavy heart that I hear the vile accusations and anger levied against me for what I did to serve the people of Mesa County. I think it was important for someone to stand up, and I chose to do that, end quote. Peters has appealed the ruling in a federal habeas corpus petition in the U.S. District Court of Colorado. He's arguing that she should be released on bond pending the appeals decision, per Colorado News Line. Cracker Barrel's modern makeover, it doesn't stop with redoing its restaurant. It's dropping the barrel and the man from its logo as well. But it may be running off customers and paying a big price if they continue with this redesign. Many are publicly stating that they will not return to the restaurant chain. On Tuesday, the Southern-inspired casual dining chain unveiled a new logo a central part of the brand's identity since 1977. And here we go. Shares of Cracker Barrel, well, they nosedived more than 12% in trading on Thursday, which is a loss of more than $200 million. The identity refresh also includes new TV commercials, a redesigned menu, and several new fall-themed foods, all part of a larger $700 million transformation plan to shake off its supposedly old image and to lure in a new group of diners. The CEO, Julie Masino, in 2024, she said this, quote, "The way we communicate the things on the menu, the way the stores look and feel, all of these things came up time and time again in our research. It's opportunities for us to really regain relevancy," end quote. Even the liberal CNN is questioning the wisdom of these moves by an iconic brand when they wrote, quote, "In particular, the new logo is the latest in a string of changes angering some of its loyal fans who fear the 56-year-old chain is drifting too far from its original bucolic roots." On social media, some users griped, with one writing that, quote, "Changing the logo just feels like another little piece of culture dying off," end quote. Cracker Barrel has also been remodeling some of its 660 stores or restaurants. The chain is apparently decluttering, that's what they say, by removing the country-themed trinkets that had lined the walls. They're also lightening up the interior colors. Here's a look at one of the remodeled Cracker Barrel restaurants. And again, the reaction from customers, it has been resistance. With some videos on TikTok going viral as the folks, well, they voiced their displeasure. But these smackdowns, well, they don't seem to be getting through to the company's top leadership. Here's the CEO offering her perspective.
Honestly, the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive that people like what we're doing. I'll give you another soundbite. I actually happened to be in Orlando last week with all of our managers. We bring them together and every other year. And the number one question that I got asked, Michael, was, how can I get a remodel? When can I get a remodel? How do I get on the list?
Oh, really?
So because the feedback and the buzz is so good, not only from our customers, but from our team members. They want to work in a wonderful restaurant. So we're doing everything for our guests and our team members.
Well, Julie Masino, it's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for answering those questions for all the Cracker Barrel fans out there. There's a lot of great changes.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Robin?
Can I get in writing that the peg game is going to stay?
The peg game is staying.
Okay.
So are the rocking chairs, fireplace, vintage decor. It's all there.
All right. Okay, because that would be a deal breaker. That would be a deal breaker.
Well, now it's time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. Russia struck an American-owned factory with cruise missiles this week in one of the largest aerial attacks since the war began. The Ukrainian Air Force said some 574 drones and 40 missiles were fired overnight. The strikes killed one person and injured 15 more, striking a, quote, major American electronics manufacturer, end quote. That's according to Ukraine's foreign minister, as cited by GB News out of Great Britain. The manufacturing plant is owned by Flex Limited. That's a company based in Austin, Texas, that works in partnership with another entity in Singapore. Far from the battlefield's front line in the east and south of Ukraine, the strikes, well, they focused on western regions. It comes days after Russian President Vladimir Putin traveled to Alaska to meet President Donald Trump to lay out his terms for peace. This includes Ukraine withdrawing from the entire Donetsk region, of course, despite not currently being under Russian military control. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, he said the attacks, that they were carried out, quote, as if nothing were changing at all, end quote. Well, that may be true. Zelensky, he's been giving the orders to pummel Russian oil and energy facilities with drones, and that's been going on all week long, as though, again, nothing has changed. I'd say President Trump's peace plan, well, it's on the ropes and it's hanging by a thread. The sad fact is you can't force neighboring countries that hate each other to make peace. They have to, well, want it. And right now, it seems as though neither side seems really to want peace. A peace deal prematurely forced upon two warring parties like this, well, it can often result in even worse bloodshed later on. And now the fear is the war will spread to other countries. So maybe, just maybe, we should, well, leave this to these two countries. Let them do their own thing. Let them sort it out themselves. Let them figure out their own problems. Rather than us forcing this, well, what seems to be elusive peace. When they're ready, then they'll come to the table. And, well, doesn't seem like that's maybe going to happen anytime soon, but we'll keep you posted. That does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. As always, thank you for tuning in and supporting the broadcast at worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Again, thank you for your support so we can continue to push out free programming like this and all the other programs you find for free at worldviewtube.com. Don't forget about our Sunday night church service. This Sunday night, I'm back. Revelation chapter 20, verse 1, as I'm teaching through the book of Revelation. This will be lesson 47. It's our Sunday night church service, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, at worldviewtube.com. Brought to you again by our foundation, that is our church. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.